Have you ever wondered how a young man, sold into slavery by his own brothers, could rise to a position of immense power and influence? The story of Joseph of Egypt is not just a tale of ambition and triumph, but a profound journey of faith, resilience, and divine providence that speaks volumes about God's purpose for our lives. Join me on an exploration of this incredible narrative, as we delve into the life of Joseph, a journey that is both captivating and instructive for anyone seeking to understand faith's role in personal transformation. At the tender age of 17, Joseph's life took an unexpected turn when his brothers, driven by jealousy and spite, sold him into slavery. Imagine the overwhelming sorrow, fear, and despair he must have felt. Genesis 37 verse 28 vividly recounts, "So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver to the Ishmaelites who took him to Egypt." Here, we see the dreadful choices of Joseph's siblings result in a heart-wrenching betrayal. But it's important to note that despite the grave circumstances, God was already orchestrating a greater plan. His journey was just beginning. Joseph's resilience is truly inspiring. As he arrived in Egypt, a land far removed from his home and family, he found himself as the property of Potiphar, one of Pharaoh's officials. Genesis 39 verse 2 assures us, "The Lord was with Joseph so that he prospered, even in a foreign land." In a position of servitude, Joseph chose to trust in God's goodness. Here is a pivotal moment, one that prompts us to ask, how often do we look for God in our struggles? Are we quick to despair when life takes an unexpected turn, or can we find His hand at work even in our darkest moments? As Joseph worked in Potiphar's house, his integrity and hard work quickly distinguished him. Potiphar recognized Joseph's exceptional abilities and made him overseer of his household, Genesis 39 verse 4. Notice how, even as a servant, Joseph's attitude remained one of excellence. Amid adversity, he did not wallow in self-pity. Instead, he worked diligently and faithfully. This brings to the surface another profound insight. What does it mean to work heartily as unto the Lord, even when the circumstances are less than ideal? Joseph serves as an example of how our faith can illuminate the path to excellence in any calling, reminding us of Colossians 3 verse 23, "Whatever you do, work heartily, as for the Lord and not for men." However, Joseph's story took yet another turn when he caught the eye of Potiphar's wife. She tried to seduce him, but Joseph, displaying extraordinary moral integrity, refused her advances, declaring, "How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" Genesis 39 verse 9. This moment showcases the strength of his character. Joseph chose to uphold his values and remain faithful to God rather than indulge in fleeting pleasure. Have you faced a similar crossroads where integrity clashed with temptation? Joseph's example encourages us to cling steadfastly to our convictions, trusting that God sees our struggles and will honor our commitment to Him. The aftermath, however, was devastating. Potiphar's wife falsely accused Joseph, resulting in his imprisonment. One might wonder, as many of us have when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges, why, God? I chose righteousness, yet I find myself in chains. This question encapsulates the human experience of grappling with faith and adversity. Yet, Genesis 39 verse 21 reveals, "But the Lord was with Joseph in the prison." Here's a grounding truth: God does not abandon us in our trials. Even in the bleakest places, He remains present, guiding and nurturing our spirit. In prison, Joseph again displayed remarkable character and discernment. He earned the trust of the warden, who put him in charge of all the prisoners, Genesis 39 verse 22. In the midst of confinement, Joseph continued to serve and help those around him, illustrating the heart of a true leader. This brings forth another profound revelation: even when life's circumstances confine us, God often uses that time to refine our character and prepare us for future responsibilities. Are you in a season of waiting or restriction? Consider it a divine opportunity for growth and preparation, knowing that God is working behind the scenes. As time passed in prison, Joseph's gift of interpreting dreams became a beacon of hope. When Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker found themselves imprisoned alongside him, Joseph interpreted their dreams accurately. Genesis 40 verses 14 to 15. His faithful service bore fruit, yet he remained forgotten in prison for 2 long years after predicting the cupbearer's reinstatement. This waiting period was a season of preparation, a time for Joseph to cultivate patience and trust in God. Have you ever felt forgotten, as if your efforts and aspirations were of no consequence? This resonates with many of us in our faith journeys. God calls us to trust His timing, often hidden from our view, as He weaves His perfect plan through the fabric of our lives. And then, the moment arrived that would change everything. Pharaoh had a disturbing dream that none of his advisors could interpret. The cupbearer, finally remembering Joseph, spoke to Pharaoh about the young man in prison. Genesis 41 verse 14 recounts, "So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was quickly brought from the dungeon." With this moment, we see how God's timing and providence work together powerfully. God's orchestration is a central theme that reverberates throughout Joseph's life, every hardship serving a purpose. When Joseph stood before Pharaoh, he confidently declared, "I cannot do it, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires." Genesis 41 verse 16. Here, we witness the culmination of Joseph's faith journey. In the face of uncertainty and power, Joseph attributed all understanding to God alone. His faith was infused with humility and acknowledgement of divine sovereignty. This invites reflection. In our achievements and successes, do we remember to give God the glory? Do we acknowledge His hand in our journey? Joseph not only interpreted Pharaoh's dreams, predicting 7 years of abundance followed by 7 years of famine, but he also provided a strategic plan for survival. Pharaoh was so impressed that he appointed Joseph as second in command over Egypt. Genesis 41 verse 41. From a pit to Potiphar's house, to prison, and now to the palace, Joseph's trajectory is a masterclass in God's providence and mercy. One pertinent question emerges: how often do we underestimate God's ability to elevate us from our struggles into positions of influence for His glory? Now in a place of authority, Joseph's faith yet again came into play. As the famine struck not just Egypt but the surrounding regions, people came to him for grain. It was during this time that Joseph confronted his past when his brothers came seeking help. This moment brings forth emotions of the deepest kind. Could he forgive the brothers who sold him into slavery? Genesis 45 verses 4 to 5 illustrates this heartwarming encounter as Joseph reveals his identity, declaring, "It was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you." Joseph recognized the hand of God working through betrayal to orchestrate salvation for many. This is a beautiful picture of God's redemptive power. It resonates deeply with anyone who has faced betrayal or injustice, challenging us to consider the possibility of forgiveness and the greater purpose behind our pain. As the narrative unfolds, Joseph not only forgives his brothers but embraces and reconciles with them. He invited his entire family to Egypt to live under his protection during the famine. Not only did Joseph rise to sovereignty, but he also exemplified the essence of reconciliation. His journey of faith teaches us crucial lessons about the importance of forgiveness, understanding, and love within familial relationships. Are there unresolved conflicts in your life? Joseph's story invites us to embrace the healing power of forgiveness, turning past hurts into avenues of grace. Joseph's faith journey from slave to sovereign encapsulates a remarkable narrative of resilience, integrity, perseverance, and forgiveness. His life reminds us that every adversity can serve a purpose, shaping us for greater things in God's kingdom. Romans 8 verse 28 encapsulates this beautifully, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. Through Joseph's ups and downs, we see the thread of divine purpose weaving through every experience, encouraging us to trust in God's ultimate plan, even when the way seems unclear. In conclusion, the story of Joseph of Egypt serves as a powerful reminder that no matter our beginnings or the trials we face, God is working continually to bring us into His good and perfect will. It teaches us to trust in His timing, to forgive deeply, and to recognize our potential to influence and inspire others, even in the darkest of circumstances. As we reflect on Joseph's journey, may we find encouragement in knowing that our faith can turn our trials into triumphs, shaping us into vessels for God's glory in a world that desperately needs hope. So, the next time you face adversity, remember Joseph. Understand that you too are on a journey of faith, one that could very well lead you from bondage to the palace, reflecting the light of Christ in every step you take. Joseph's legacy is not just a story of survival, it is a call for all of us to live earnestly, trust profoundly, and love relentlessly, for through it all, God is with us, guiding us toward His divine calling.